Filthy Animals is an ecology podcast for adults. Episodes may contain strong language and graphic descriptions of natural phenomena. A more detailed list of content warnings is included in the episode description.
Well, welcome to Filthy Animals, a sex, drugs, and ecology podcast where science educators, that's us, talk about the unusual adult activities of the natural world that we think you need to know about.
Like chlamydia.
Like chlamydia. Spoiler. Every month, we are going to expose you to the latest research on all the filthy topics your high school science teacher was too embarrassed to talk about. That coward.
Yeah.
I'm Alan.
Oh,
I'm Nicole.
and I'm Rachel.
Terrific.
And I bet even your health teacher, who was probably just like the football coach who didn't want to be there, was too afraid to tell you about chlamydia, which is what I'm here to do today. I'm here to fix that.
My sex education was primarily a birth video that scared all the women away from sex, and then just STDs, just pictures of STDs on genitals to also scare us away from sex.
Just like, oh, wow.
They showed you
Did
genitals?
you go to Catholic school?
Oh, yeah.
Because I went to Catholic school and we didn't have that.
I did not go to Catholic school.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah.
'Cause that's
Did
pretty.
not.
That's pretty hardcore. Honestly.
Yeah, it was gnarly.
Yeah.
And did scare me away from sex, so it was effective.
Shame-based sex education.
Woo!
Fear-based sex education. All right.
And koala-based sex education.
Yeah, this is the one thing I know about chlamydia is you don't touch koalas.
Yep.
Well, I mean, you can touch them. Just
Nope.
Wash your hands after?
wash your hands.
It is illegal
Don't
to
have
touch
sex
koalas.
with them.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's
Yeah,
kind of a
that
given.
probably
Thank
goes
you.
without saying.
Thank you. I would hope so.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. So today we're gonna be talking about a very important STD/STI, which is so much more than an STD/STI, although it is very much that. Yeah, for sure, 100%. What do you guys know about chlamydia?
Is it bacterial?
Yeah.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of the bumpy ones.
Actually, no.
No?
It's not one of the bumpy ones.
Is it one of the scaly ones?
Not so much. It's more of like inflammation and pain and like oozing pus from, various orifices on whichever
gotcha.
genitalia you have.
Sure. Gotcha. See, they didn't show us the pictures.
Yeah.
That's why I don't know.
Yeah. Wikipedia will show you pictures though. So just
I don't think I've never Googled chlamydia. Darn.
great.
My bad.
Well, you can fix that today.
I can. I will. I'll go do my homework.
That's it. It's bacterial, and you did not know how it presents even in people. Nicole, do you know anything different about chlamydia?
No.
Great. Okay. Well, we got
Koalas.
a long ways to go.
I'm sure at one point I did. It's just, gone.
Yeah.
Like so many things that I've learned.
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, the reason we're talking about it today is that it is one of the most common STDs and STIs, and it is incredibly prevalent in the natural world, including several important grassland species. Well, shout out to our parent organization.
Nice.
One animal that famously gets the infection is koalas, which, by the way, Australia declared endangered in several eastern regions in 2022.
Due to chlamydia?
In large part, yes.
Dang. All right.
It is a
I mean,
serious
it's not funny,
problem.
but
No, it's
Well, I have a quote from a scientist, and it's like, wow, that is very devastating. But it is honestly, objectively kind of funny the way that it happens for them too. So, I mean, we'll laugh about it. Maybe we'll cry about it. We'll figure it out. Emotionally, it's going to be difficult for us to figure out what's happening.
roller coaster.
But it turns out it's actually an infection that occurs in other mammals, a lot of other mammals, and not just mammals. It also occurs in birds, reptiles, and since 2020, we've discovered novel chlamydia strains or species. That's like, the species version of a bacteria. So yeah, there's a ton of them out there just infecting people. Did you know that you can get chlamydia if a parrot sneezes on you?
Sneezes on you.
Yeah, or poops on you.
Poops on you makes sense because
Yeah.
that's coming from the genital area, but it's transmissible by sneeze.
Well, it's mostly transmissible by poop. So that's like the thing you got to worry about the most.
But they can sneeze at you. Sneeze? Nope.
I mean, we'll talk about it, but it's all over their eyeballs and all that general area too and stuff.
Oh,
so.
like a fecal veneer of sorts.
I don't like that. Well, okay, yeah, sure. Some background on the chlamydia bacteria itself. Chlamydia is a genus of bacteria, and chlamydia bacteria don't obviously spread exclusively through sex, and they don't exclusively infect sexual organs. Even the human STI chlamydia strain causes trachoma in humans, which is a disease that has some other names, including granular conjunctivitis and blinding trachoma. This is something that infects your eyeballs. There's horrifying pictures of it online. It's granular. Very fitting name. It looks like you've got like little sacks of, I don't know, friggin' spider eggs or something growing in your eyeball region, like inside your lids. Yeah. It's horrifying. Also, one symptom of trachoma, which is, again, the eyeball infection you can get from chlamydia, is called trichiasis, which is defined as misaligned eyelashes. And I was like, how is that? Like, how do your eyelashes get misaligned? That doesn't make sense. And I giggled a lot until I looked it up, and it's really awful. Basically, your eyelashes grow back toward the eyes. So your eyelashes like grow into your corneas and your conjunctiva and stuff. It's disgusting.
Damn. Yeah, that's...
I do want to point out that you can get that from non-chlamydial reasons. So
conjunctivitis,
and like the eyeball
or trichiasis,
the eyelash thing, So
there's a lot of eye infections that can cause this symptom. So I saw a picture of somebody who had it, and it looked like their eyes were sewn shut. It was their eyelashes.
Exciting.
Yeah,
horrifying.
It's chlamydia, guys. So every member of the genus Chlamydia is pathogenic. They are obligate intracellular parasites, and they are the most common bacterial STD, period.
Okay.
Wow.
Of all time.
Okay. Of all time. The
goat. Jesus.
When you say the most common, do we have stats by chance?
I don't have the stats handy, no.
Okay.
And I believe that's in humans specifically. I don't think that they're including the animal world. I'm not sure if we have like great stats on the infection rates of STDs across animals in general.
Probably not getting tested as regularly.
Definitely not. In humans, the strain or species is Chlamydia trachomatis, which is, again, a bacterial STD or STI. You get abnormal discharge from a reproductive organ, burning when urinating, itching, pain and swelling in your testicles or cervix, etc. It's very painful and pretty damaging.
Yeah, it doesn't sound fun.
Nope.
Can I just say, so far, this has been also fear-based sex education. This little body horror is, I don't know. Are we,
Well, just use protection. And, well, actually, there are recommendations for how to not get chlamydia.
Yeah.
I find this hilarious. It is, number one, don't have sex with people who have chlamydia.
Good start, yep.
And use protection.
Perfect.
Or don't have sex was the other thing they said, which is like, well, okay. I mean, really, you could stop at the first one. Just try not to have sex with somebody who has chlamydia.
That's kind of a good blanket statement.
Yeah. And it is bacterial, so you can cure it with antibiotics. So, if you have symptoms, just take freaking antibiotics and get rid of it. Take care of yourself.
Yeah. Don't be ashamed. Tell someone. Get help.
Exactly.
Tell someone who can do something about it.
Yeah.
But if you need moral support, you can tell anybody you want, really, about your chlamydia infection.
There we go.
But, just
feel free to tell us. We will
refer
point
you
you
to
in
a
the right
doctor.
direction. We'll point you to resources that can help.
Yes.
Great. What about chlamydia in koalas?
Someone else can monitor the email that week.
God damn. Okay, sure. So there's a different strain or species that infects koalas, and there's actually 2 that infect koalas. We're going to start with koalas because they're super famous. We're going to get into other types of chlamydia that infect other types of animals later on too. But the number 1 infective chlamydia in koalas is Chlamydia pecorum, which is not transmissible to humans, but is very common in livestock. And that's kind of the primary hypothesis for how koalas came to get it, is that maybe they got it from livestock because it's thought of as like the livestock chlamydia. By the way, your livestock can get chlamydia too. Koalas can also be infected with Chlamydia pneumonia, and that you can get from a koala if they pee on you, which is very possible. If you can come in contact with a koala infected with chlamydia, it's almost a guarantee that it's going to pee on you. More on that in a second. Koalas do die from this, and some populations have a 100% infection rate of chlamydia.
Wow.
Which can turn into a chlamydia pneumonia at any time if the infection is like severe enough. Yes,
chlamydia pneumonia, and the Chlamydia pecorum too is lethal in koalas. So they're both bad.
Yeah.
And in 2017, chlamydia of whichever strain was found to be the most lethal disease in koalas. The only thing in Australia that kills more koalas is cars.
Wow.
So cars number 1, chlamydia number 2.
Yeah.
not predators, nothing of the
No. No, cars and chlamydia.
Dang.
The koala double whammy. So the main question I have then is like, okay, why is it so deadly for koalas? Because like it doesn't kill people, and like it's curable, right? And why are so many koalas getting it? Do you guys? I know I've talked about chlamydia. This is a weird thing to say. I've talked about chlamydia with at least one of you before. Do you have any idea why it's so deadly for koalas?
Why it's so deadly for koalas?
Just a little bacterial infection. Spread through sex or having your baby.
Or eating your mom's poop, because they do that too.
Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why the Joeys get it from their moms.
Is it
poor immune systems?
You're tickling the top of the iceberg.
Tickling the top of the iceberg.
That's a common saying, right?
I mean, it should be.
I'll give you a clue. It has to do with koalas having an extraordinarily specialized diet.
Oh, because they only eat the one thing, mostly.
Which is difficult to break down.
Yeah.
And requires a very specific microbiome to exist in their GI tract.
Yeah. So you can't give them an antibiotic. Otherwise, you're obliterating that microbiome, and they can no longer digest the eucalyptus.
Yep. Yeah, that's one of
so
the...
you're basically sentencing them to death by trying to treat chlamydia.
Right.
Yeah.
That is like a huge concern and a huge reason why chlamydia like curing efforts haven't really been effective. Also, the length of time you have to give them antibiotics is pretty significant. So like curing it in a wild population where you have to give them antibiotics for like 45 days straight, it's not really a viable option. And, one of the side effects I guess side effects is the right word. One of the side effects for antibiotic treatment for that period of time is the proper word for that is dysbiosis, which is the killing off of your gut flora. And literally it can sentence them to death because they're not able to digest their only food source. The other reason it's really deadly is because just the side effects or the symptoms of the chlamydia infection in them gets to a lethal point. And so in a chlamydia infection for koalas, in 87% of infections, the bacteria will colonize the entire urogenital tract. And when there's no intervention, it can climb all the way to the bladder, where it invades the bladder wall, leads to inflammation and cystitis. It's basically the world's worst UTI, which results in total incontinence. So they're just leaking pee everywhere, completely incontinent. Their kidneys can get inflamed. And then when it invades the reproductive tract as a part of that infection, the females have it absolutely worse. It can cause ovarian bursal cysts to develop and total infertility in the koalas. Wow. So this is like having a multi-generational impact, where in places where there's 100% infection rate of chlamydia in koalas, they might be completely infertile and not able to repopulate at all. Wow. And bursal cysts, just to like define that, it's not your average like ovarian cyst or something like that, which is awful. A bursa is basically the fluid-filled sac that functions as a cushion between things inside your body. So like you have a bursal sac inside your joints. Nicole has burst a bursa before. She's nodding because she knows exactly what this is. You have like cushions in your joints and your muscles. So basically this is the entire sac that holds the ovary and protects it. And the sac holding the ovary becomes infected. And it basically throttles the entire ovary. I've read interviews with scientists who have talked about like looking at necropsies for wild koalas, female koalas who have these, and they describe it as being like really difficult to look at, like almost like a solid like block of like an infected like solid cyst around the ovary where the ovary was.
Jeez.
It's extremely painful.
Yeah, I was just going to say it has to be incredibly painful.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it really hard to look at too. It's like, oh God, like this animal was living with probably just blinding intense pain for the last part of its life. Yeah. Ugh. And it gets worse. Chlamydia pecorum. Chlamydia pecorum can infect the gastrointestinal tract and the conjunctiva. So this is going to be a common thread in chlamydia infections. It can get into your eyes. It can cause blindness in koalas. And conjunctiva, just to define that again, it's the mucous membranes that are around your eyelids and lining your eyes like actual surface. So the chlamydia can scar their eyes and make them go blind. And obviously if they have the pneumonia strain, it can cause pneumonia. So all of these symptoms combine to basically just extreme pain, infertility, and eventual death in the koala because they're not eating, they're becoming lethargic. It's an awful way to live with that infection.
Yeah, most wildlife diseases are not pretty. Yeah,
Nope.
That's a real, dark.
Yep. Haha. Whoops, dark episode. That's okay.
That's okay.
Do you want something to giggle about?
Sure.
Some little lighthearted koala-ness?
Yeah.
All right, great. So you know how wet bottom, that's the actual term for koala
guys,
koala incontinent wet bottom koalas, So one of the ways that you measure how infected with chlamydia a koala is by measuring their little wet bottom. And the way that you quantify how wet a koala's bottom is by taking a Schirmer's tear test strip, which is what you would normally use to measure how dry your eyeballs are. And then you stick it on the little koala bottom, and then the millimeters of urine absorption onto the Schirmer's test tear strip is how you test quantifiably how wet their bottom is.
How advanced their chlamydia would be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's funny.
I mean, it's kind of ridiculous,
Schnoop.
Yeah.
We got 6 millimeters, guys. This one's really, really infected.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, good stuff. The population of koalas in northern New South Wales has been studied for a long time with their chlamydia infection. And to give you an idea of how bad it's gotten in Australia, especially on the eastern part of Australia where they're now considered endangered, in 2008, 10% of the animals tested there were infected with chlamydia. In 2018, the rate was 80%.
Jeez.
80% infection rate in a wild population?
Over the course of a decade from 10%.
Of something that's typically close to 100% lethal.
But yeah.
Yeah, that math is not in their favor.
It's not doing good. Matthew Crowther, who was a conservation biologist studying this population, was quoted as saying, quote, "It's been devastating. There's very, very low fertility. You hardly see any babies."
Well, yeah, and I wonder, I mean, being a marsupial probably amplifies this as well because their newborns are extremely vulnerable.
Yeah.
So, if they're able to reproduce at all, if their reproductive tract isn't completely tanked, I'd imagine the little marsupial beings are probably not ready for a bacterial overload.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question though.
Yeah. Go for it.
Are you getting depressed by your own episode, Rachel?
Well, obviously.
Okay.
Go for it.
I have a question.
Okay.
And maybe this is slightly more lighthearted to add a little levity. Okay, what's the situation with captive koalas though in Australia? Have they ever successfully? First of all, is there prevalent infection among captive koalas? Yeah. And are they able to? Have they had any success treating them?
Yeah, interesting. Because the wild populations are the biggest issue, right? Because the intervention is so hefty.
Yeah.
So that's a really good question. And with captive koalas, it is once again like a difficult balance in trying to treat them. So dysbiosis is just one possible outcome from treatment with antibiotics. And there has been some success in at least keeping the infection from becoming like lethal with using antibiotics to treat them in captivity. It's still an issue though. It's considered kind of a risk to work with koalas in that respect because a lot of them are infected. But there have been reports. So, in 2023, August 2023, there was a study published in Scientific Reports that showed that antibiotics in koalas did positively impact their survival, which I think is something that people in, captive environments have certainly seen when they're trying to manage their koalas' chlamydia. So they, in this retrospective study, analyzed like the type of antibiotic, the treatment length, dosage, and the sex of the koala. And they found that all of those different factors can definitely impact the individual health outcomes of the koala. So, whether they're thriving, whether they've completely omitted their infection, whether it's just like such a low infection rate that it's considered subclinical, but they're still technically infected, whether they freaking die, like all of those individual health outcomes have like a lot of variability depending on how you're treating them. But survival, whether they die or not, overall is better with antibiotic intervention. And I think, again, that's something that people in, zoological environments have understood. Like there are ways to manage the infection without killing off their gut flora and killing off the koala. And it definitely overall, even in wild koalas, makes their survival better. So they don't just straight up die if they're at least receiving some intervention. Right. Yeah.
You just have to, it's a difficult line to toe though, I guess, because you have to, in an omnivorous mammal or like a person, that gut biome hit temporary, it's, if you had a severe infection, they could prescribe you a powerful antibiotic and just wipe it out.
Right.
But you have to be like a lot more careful, I guess.
Yeah. And there's also the balance of if we're not killing off the entire infection, like is it worth this koala's survival if we're going to potentially create resistant strains of the bacteria.
Oh, yeah.
And there are different types of antibiotics that are available. This one study showed, the one that I just mentioned, showed doxycycline was the most effective. But there are other options. And some of the other antibiotics they mentioned I'd never even heard of before. I was like, whoa, okay, cool. We're like coming up with new stuff. So yeah, but again, it's just like a difficult individual management task.
Sure.
And even the sex of the koala can affect whether they have a better outcome. I can't remember. I didn't write down which direction it went, but one of the sexes, it's probably females, were hit harder by infections and had a more difficult time recovering with intervention.
Could you use non-infected koalas and use like, you know, fecal samples for them to help boost like kind of like a probiotic for the koala undergoing this?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's a thing that they've been looking into. I didn't write anything down about that. But I'm sure that's something they're looking into because that's such a common like fecal transplant therapy type situation. Yeah. Probably this is all conjecture because I don't actually have any like data that I looked at for this, but I would imagine that the thing making that difficult is like, did we wipe out the chlamydia altogether? Did that already create like difficult health outcomes for the koala? Yeah. And is there a way to do a fecal transplant that would, you know, be successful and that would benefit them without stressing them out too much or something?
Yeah. Right.
Because don't some I know there's like pill-based fecal transplants. Sometimes I've also seen like straight up surgical fecal implants.
I think that's a thing.
Transplants.
Sounds like something.
Yeah.
That exists.
But if you have a koala barely hanging on by a thread, you can't like cut them open and like stick a bunch of healthy poop in their gut.
For sure.
Yeah.
Probably not. Yeah.
But there's like, you know, probably other forms of intervention. I'm sure that's something that I'm sure that's being looked into or being used. I'm sure that's been explored. Yeah. The other. Oh yeah. Go ahead. Do you have something to do?
Well, this is why I asked about captive populations, because I wanted to know how frequently are Aussie zookeepers getting tested for chlamydia? Because if I was just Googling, and you can find there are pictures of both Bindi and Robert Irwin just absolutely covered in koalas.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So but you're having skin-to-skin contact with a koala. You should probably get yourself tested, right? I mean, right? Like,
if they got wet bottoms.
Yeah, if it's like, because I don't know how extensive, like, we're talking 80% of wild in the wild in captive populations. So is it still equally prevalent? Like, is it just so hard to contain it and like that spillover, or are there plenty of like, ooh, these are fine koalas to cuddle for the cameras?
Yeah, for sure. There are definitely uninfected koalas. I think the rate of infection is lower in captivity because there's a little bit more control over it, and they can at least manage the symptoms a little bit to like monitor. I mean, but I have a lot of the like videos you see of people dealing with chlamydia infected koalas are zoo people dealing with their chlamydia infected koalas. Yeah. Isn't there a thing too where if you're holding a koala in front of a camera, you have to be a zookeeper in Australia?
Yes. I don't know like the exact law behind it, but yeah, there's a lot of laws around koala care, and
yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, I mean that's because it's a zoo. I mean it's a zoonotic infection, right? So like you gotta that makes sense.
And again, pecorum cannot transmit to humans. So if it's just chlamydia pecorum, that is safe. You're not going to be able to, at least so far, catch that strain. Although I will note that there's an awful lot of species hopping in chlamydia infections. So, just because it hasn't been documented doesn't mean that it's not a potential risk. The only strain that would be contagious to humans would be the pneumonia version, which would be bad if you got it. That can kill you. It can be a fatal chlamydia pneumonia in a person, but at least a person, you can get antibiotics for it and cure it pretty easily. So. Yep. Yeah, just go to the freaking hospital if you're sick, Yeah. The other thing that's good news is that there have been vaccine trials, and that's been like a decade of work, right? And those have actually finally begun to pay off. So I feel like vaccine studies hit a pretty critical tipping point in 2020 and 2021. That's when you see like a boost of studies showing like, hey, these are, effective. They're working. Like we're able to do these in koalas. And then finally in 2023, again, last year, there were studies confirming that the current vaccine formulations are safe and effective. They do decrease chlamydiosis mortality from Chlamydia pecorum. And the vaccine is a single shot, which is so much better than trying to capture koalas and giving them antibiotics all the time. And it is, at least one of the formulations combines to treat both chlamydia and koala retrovirus, which is another extremely serious disease that can exacerbate chlamydia infections. And finally, last year, Australian scientists launched the first vaccination effort for wild koalas. So like last year when they were finally like, here's the tipping point, like we've demonstrated that this can work, they were able to get on the ground and begin like actual efforts to get vaccines into wild populations. And that's awesome. But like the only issue with that is that in order for a vaccination to be effective, you have to find koalas that aren't sick. So yeah. And like in Queensland, half of Queensland's wild koalas are already infected. So finding healthy ones to vaccinate is probably the biggest hurdle, in addition to just, the efforts at the serious on the ground efforts that it takes to do a mass vaccination effort for like an endangered species. Like that's just a lot of work. You have to keep them and monitor them for 24 hours. And it's a whole ordeal. So, but hope at last for at least the ones that are healthy right now.
No, for sure. That is, and how long does a koala live or survive with a chronic chlamydia infection?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay, I didn't know. I was curious, like how quickly would a population collapse? Because obviously it hasn't over the course of years now.
Yeah.
Even if they're with such a high infection rate. So
right. And I think the one of the depressing things about chlamydia infections is that it's not like a quick death. It would be very long, and it's more lethal in females. So males can just suffer with chlamydia for a long time without being killed by it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But hope.
Yay. At last. Yay. Hopefully their little wet bottoms will begin to decrease.
Oh.
And that's also good news for zoo koalas. Like I'm sure, I didn't read anything about this, but I'm sure now that they're deemed like safe and effective, that they're rolled out in zoos for all their healthy koalas.
For sure.
Yeah. Is this, the koala is such a iconic animal for conservation in Australia. Does the chlamydia aspect, has that had any impact on like their ability to, push conservation, like as a flagship animal? Does that affect their ability to do that? Are people like, I
don't think so.
Know. Are people, I wonder if like public perception of koalas is like, oh no,
they're full of an STD.
Yeah.
They probably don't like push that in front of people too much. Kind of like how prairie dog experts don't talk about plague that much, because it's like, it's horribly lethal to them, but like we don't want people to think they're nasty. People already hate them, so
right, yeah.
At least with koalas, people love them.
People love koalas.
Yeah. I think their wet bottoms are somewhat known, but I don't know how much of that is like all these chlamydia infested animals spreading STDs everywhere. Yeah. I don't think it's harmed their image at all. I mean, have you felt like their image has been harmed? Have you noticed anything?
Well, I don't know. I guess it's maybe it's just the circles that I exist in, but I feel like I don't hear a lot of koala talk that doesn't involve chlamydia. I don't, or that they're just like absolute maniacs and monstrous little critters. Yeah. So
maybe that says more about your circles than
you're right.
The PR campaigns for koalas.
I need to. Yeah.
No, I think you're doing great.
Okay.
Your circles are fine. Yeah. I mean, same. Yeah. Well, let's talk about other chlamydias, because there's again a lot of other chlamydias. That's just like the most like famous, the poster child. Have you guys ever heard of psittacosis?
Psisticosis?
Psittacosis.
Psittacosis. Yeah,
with
absolutely.
a P. Psittacosis.
Psittacosis.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. Also known as parrot fever or ornithosis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's chlamydia.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. It's a zoonotic infectious disease in humans caused by a bacterium called Chlamydia psittaci, rather. And it's contracted from infected parrots like macaws, cockatiels, budgerigars, and also from pigeons, sparrows, ducks, hens, gulls, and many other species of birds.
Mm-hmm.
So it is literally a chlamydia infection from birds in humans, and it's a lethal zoonotic disease.
Exciting.
Woo! Yeah, so birds can carry chlamydia without symptoms. Terrifying. But it is lethal and systemic, so it affects their entire body with chlamydiosis. If they do have symptoms, it's respiratory gunk, so discharge from eyes and nose, coughing and sneezing.
Mm-hmm.
Infections of the conjunctiva. It invades their GI tract, liver, spleen. The urates in their poop commonly turn yellow or lime green.
Jeez.
But it does invade the entire body. Most organs, their eggs, and all strains are transmissible to humans, and other mammals can catch it too.
This one, does hop over.
Yep. Yep.
So it gets in the lungs. That's probably what's fatal for them, I would say.
Yeah, like they're very sensitive. But I mean, it's in their entire body. So like the chlamydiosis is going to be just over their entire body. Now you, Alan and Nicole, are most likely to get C. psittaci from bird poop. Mm-hmm. And it's like a cold or flu. It won't infect your reproductive organs if you get it, but you can get deadly pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
It is treatable, of course, but only if you catch it in time.
Yes. Go to your doctor. If you've been handling a lot of bird poop for any reason, go see your doctor.
You mentioned that it passes to eggs. Is there like, I don't know, if you eat a lot of raw eggs from like a crappy chicken farm?
Ooh.
Yeah,
I'm just going to say yes. You can get chlamydia.
It does impact chickens, right?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, and I mean, obviously it
infects all kinds of poultry, and I mean that in like not the hyperbolic, like all kinds of them, like every kind of poultry can get chlamydiosis from this strain of chlamydia, and it's found in a lot of wild birds. It's been found in hawks. In March of 2020, researchers discovered that fulmars in the Faroe Islands caused a chlamydia pandemic in humans in the 1930s.
Oh, wow.
So like what they found retrospectively is that the fulmars contracted the chlamydia from infected dead parrots that were shipped to Europe from South America and thrown overboard on the ships by the Faroe Islands. And in this 1930s chlamydia pandemic, it killed 20% of the people that were infected and 80% of the pregnant women who were infected by it.
God.
So the fulmars caught it from dead parrots thrown overboard from a ship.
Yeah.
And then the fulmars spread it to people. And then 80% of pregnant women died.
How much do fulmars even interact with humans?
Not that much.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, they're like a seabird for anybody who's not familiar. Like they're a seabird. Maybe they poop. Maybe they caught a passing sneeze. Like, I mean, I don't know how you could possibly, I
guess if they're hanging out on docks and stuff like that. Maybe.
Sure, or cliffs. I know in that region, it can be common to eat like cliff nesting bird eggs and things like that. So, I mean, even if you're not catching fulmars and dealing with fulmars directly, if they're pooping around areas where there are puffins or whatever, maybe you're catching it that way.
Dang. Yeah, that's wild.
Isn't that crazy?
What would have even happened then if because I wonder what was going to happen to those parrots, if they'd made it to their destination. Would it have been like a second plague in Europe?
God.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, what were they going to do with those parrots? I don't even know. It's crazy. Yep. That's like, if it was that like that is such a chance thing.
Yeah,
and for it to be
right?
so deadly, that's crazy.
Right. And so, like, just to make it clear, the parrots had died from their infections.
Yeah.
And everybody was just like, oh, dead parrots, throw them overboard. Like,
yeah.
yeah. So.
Right. Weird. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And there's a lot of other chlamydias that infect birds. There's Chlamydia avium, Chlamydia gallinaceae, Chlamydia ibidis. If you use your imaginations, you can see exactly which birds those would infect. Chlamydias have been described in nearly 500 bird species. There were studies published on the world endangered crested ibis that found that 20% of fecal samples in this endangered species were positive for chlamydia of 2 different varieties. They also found a lot of high genetic diversity in the pathogens, which is pretty common in chlamydias and probably why there are so many different chlamydias constantly being discovered. It's found in bird cloacas and absolutely spreads through like sex, feces, and respiratory droplets like other forms of chlamydia. Yep. And, fun fact, in 2019, a team in Italy found that a female Mediterranean striped dolphin who'd stranded herself and died had only one pathogen in her liver, her spleen, her lymph nodes, her hearts and lungs. Chlamydia abortus.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
The first time a chlamydia had ever been documented in a marine mammal.
Dang.
That's how promiscuous dolphins are. They're very lucky.
Yeah.
Honestly. Yeah. Which does bring me to Chlamydia abortus, which is a zoonotic STD, once again, that, as the name suggests, does cause abortion in the animals that it infects.
Mm-hmm.
That's also usually the only symptom of this particular chlamydia, which is terrifying because it can infect humans. It can jump from animals to humans. It causes fetal death in mammals. There's usually a couple of cases in the UK each year of unwanted fetal abortion in humans, usually from contacting livestock. It is endemic in ruminants. So cows and sheep have like just a standing population of, infected animals at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
And it can also cause abortions in horses, rabbits, guinea pigs, mice, pigs, and obviously people. It's also been found in birds, and it spreads orally and sexually. So if you're in contact with livestock, it's very easy to come into contact with saliva and other oral fluids.
For
like,
sure.
I mean,
Cows are
cows,
so slobbery.
they're disgusting.
I've definitely heard of farmers having to put down their entire herds of cattle because a couple of them tested positive because that's how serious it is.
Yeah.
Because it's so contagious and spreads so easily.
Yeah, and the only symptom being death of a fetus. I mean, it's a terrifying disease.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah.
This is okay. So this is different than brucellosis, though, right? Or is brucella? Because chlamydia abortus, and there's also brucella abortus, which is we talked about that a little bit in the wood bison episode of Best Biome, but that is it presents with a similar sort of effect.
Yeah.
But these are just different genus of bacteria.
Right. And this chlamydia abortus is another type of chlamydia, and it is spread as an STD in the livestock that it infects or the other animals that it infects. Yeah. Scary. And like I said, the dolphins, I'm not I didn't go super deep into this because I didn't want to spend an entire episode talking about this one chlamydia, but in the dolphin that I just mentioned, that was chlamydia abortus, and it was in her liver, spleen, lymph nodes, heart, lungs. So while fetal death is the only real symptom, I mean, it was hypothesized that she had beached herself because of the chlamydia abortus. I mean, I don't know. It seems like it. I should stop talking so I don't actually know. It seems like if it just goes completely untreated, it would probably do other shit to you.
Sure.
But
probably. Yeah.
Nothing else. Feeling real bad.
Yeah. Right. Even if there's no obvious clinical signs otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there's also an apparent love child of Chlamydia psittaci, and Chlamydia abortus that was described for the first time ever in 2019. They named it Chlamydia boudionis because it was infecting a red-shouldered hawk. Yeah, they sequenced that entire genome of chlamydia, and it appeared to be an intermediate between those two other types of chlamydia. The red-shouldered hawk had conjunctivitis, and they detected it in her cloaca. She died from the infection. Terrible. And just like a little bit of like sprinkle of, garnish on top of the episode here for you guys. Chlamydias also infect a ton of other animals. I'm going to give you just like a little rundown of a couple of other random chlamydias that I think are noteworthy. There's Chlamydia felis. What do you think that infects?
Kitties.
Yeah.
Kitties. Yeah. It's in domestic cats worldwide. Usually it hits their eyes and respiratory system, but it can get into their reproductive tracts and stomachs. Humans can catch it. So, be concerned. Just kidding. If you don't vaccinate your cat, be concerned. But your cat should get vaccinated from it. I think it's a routine vaccination, honestly. I read that somewhere, so that might not be true. I don't know, but
unless it's like one of the kitten shots, I've never heard of that one.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, it's probably combined into something else if it is. Yeah. Wild cats also obviously can catch it. It's been noted in lynxes even. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Here's another one for you. Chlamydia cavia.
Oh no, not the cavies.
Yeah. Yep. This is a really unique chlamydia because it only infects guinea pigs.
Ugh.
Yep.
Terrible.
Researchers have tried to infect other animals with it just to see.
Hold on, researchers. What are you doing over there?
That's not the meanest thing I've heard.
Well, of course not, but
I mean, could infect them, then, give them some antibiotics. They're fine.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, researchers haven't been able to get any other small mammals to catch it. Yep. It messes up their eyes and is very similar to human chlamydia, but just in guinea pigs exclusively. So that's fun. They get their own little exclusive chlamydia.
Ooh,
so fun.
VIP.
Yep. Okay, here's another one. I'm going to have you guess what it is. Chlamydia testudinis.
Oh, the turtle chlamydia?
Yeah.
Wow.
Turtle chlamydia.
Yay.
Some spur-thighed tortoises with ocular and nasal discharge were found to have chlamydia in their eyes and cloaca. They had both Chlamydia pecorum, again, our favorite chlamydia, and also a new species, Chlamydia testudina. Good stuff. That was in 2020. 2020 was like just the golden year of new chlamydias. I guess everybody was like, we better identify new diseases.
Yeah, that's really fun.
Yep. Okay, last.
Here there was, some other disease pulling all the headlines while chlamydia was doing great work out there.
I know. Come on.
Innovating, breaking barriers.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. All right, last one. This is a low ball, but here. Chlamydia serpentis.
Oh, snickies.
Yes, Nick.
Yeah. Snake chlamydia. Snake chlamydia is systemic. It can be found in literally all of their organs. The highest concentrations of the bacteria seem to be in the brain and the heart. These snakes with snake chlamydia are often anorexic. And other chlamydias, like chlamydia pneumonia, can also be found in snakes.
Wow.
Dang.
So everybody's out here spreading this STD. So really, this if you think about it, this intracellular parasite, obligate intracellular parasite, is really found its niche. It knows what it's doing. It's like, look, we're going to spread through sex. Everybody has sex. Yeah. We're going to infect as many organs as we can.
Sure.
But they're going to keep banging. So we're going to keep having a job, which is to infect and kill animals. So, I mean, they are doing the most. And my takeaway from learning about chlamydia, and possibly yours too, is holy shit. There's a lot of chlamydia out there.
Yeah. All the chlamydia of the rainbow.
Yeah. It's variable, dangerous, ever changing, and goddamn, does it have a knack for species hopping. How terrible. I'm so glad we have antibiotics. I sure hope nothing happens to us being able to use antibiotics.
Yeah. Especially given what happened in the 30s in the Faroe Islands, like having pandemic levels of chlamydia is truly terrifying.
Yeah, there are other chlamydia pandemics that have happened from animals too. That wasn't the only one. That just I thought was very interesting.
Yeah.
Because like, how would you ever like, oh, dead parrots, let's throw them overboard in the Faroe Islands?
Like, okay, you said you said
good.
pandemic. Did it? But it was like within that.
Within that country, yes.
Okay, so it didn't like hop. It didn't like break and like outbreak spread crazy. Okay.
It wasn't like an epidemic, just a pandemic. Wait, I don't know.
Maybe
what the
an
difference
epidemic is the word we're looking for.
Epidemic.
Yes.
Because pandemic is like global.
Yeah, buddy.
Epidemic. I should know this by now. We've had one.
It all,
I think I've blocked out a lot of memories from that time.
Yeah. Oof.
Epidemic. Yep. Great stuff.
How nice. Rachel, thank you for sharing with us all the many horrifying symptoms and consequences of chlamydia.
You're so welcome. Don't have sex with koalas.
Not
for sure.
on it.
Careful
do that.
with birds.
Careful with birds. If you get sneezed on by any animal.
And snakes and
turtles.
And
If you have skin-to-skin contact with most animals, just be thinking about it in the back of your mind. Do I have chlamydia now?
Yeah. And wash your hands.
Yeah, wash your hands. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Soap and water.
Yes. 30 seconds. Is wet tail in hamsters chlamydia?
Oh, that's a great question. Hang on.
Because I've looked it up, but I can't remember.
There is a chlamydia that infects rodents. It's called like chlamydia muridae or something. It's related to their, mice scientific names. Let me check real quick. Okay, yeah, good news. Wet tail seems to be mainly due to the overgrowth of intestinal bacteria. Yeah.
So still bacteria, just different.
Yeah, it's just like their own bacteria just went totally haywire, which is wild. That's a thing that can happen? Maybe they need some antibiotics for some dysbiosis.
I wonder if it has to do with like the crappy food a lot of people feed their pets.
Possibly, yeah. That makes sense.
They're like overcompensating, trying to digest this like sugary, terrible pellets.
Probably, yeah. And the sugary terrible pellets cause those bacteria to just bloom.
Hypothesis. I don't know if that's true or not, but
yeah, me either.
Fun.
Anyway, so yeah, if your animal has a wet bottom, don't automatically assume it's chlamydia, but you should probably operate under the thought that it could be and just be careful. I mean, it's obviously something, so.
Definitely needs vet intervention.
It needs vet intervention and caution from you.
Yes.
The person. Yep.
Can't go wrong there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you want to prevent chlamydia in yourself, just remember this one important tip. Don't have sex with anybody who has chlamydia.
Yes.
Yeah.
And don't handle soggy animals without proper PPE.
Yeah. Perfect. Face shield and gloves, guys.
Yep, that's a great idea.
It's a good thing koalas don't like, how like hippos, they'll like spray poop everywhere as like a territory thing.
Yeah.
I'm really glad koalas don't do that.
Why would you say that?
It just popped into my head. Had to be said.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for that, Nicole.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, once again, thank you, Rachel, for illuminating the world of chlamydia for us.
You're welcome.
The world is alive with chlamydia.
I'm the world's health teacher. What do I coach?
Team fight tactics.
Team fight tactics.
Okay, thank you for listening, dear listener, to this episode of Filthy Animals. This podcast is produced by Grassland Groupies. Grassland's the home of chlamydia, as we learned today.
Yeah, for sure.
dedicated to spreading scientific literacy in the interest of
Not chlamydia.
but not chlamydia, in the interest of preserving our favorite natural resources on this filthy planet. Send us fan mail at 4925 South Broadway, number 69, Wichita, Kansas, 67216. Other social media and contact info is in the notes. Be safe out there. Do you have some brain bleach for us, Rachel? Because this was
She does not.
This was a journey to the heart of darkness, the chlamydia infected heart of darkness.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little,
Yeah.
little sunshine?
Okay, so pet parrots, we're going to bring them up because obviously you have a pretty significant risk of getting chlamydia from them as a parrot owner. Here's a little advice about how to interact with your pet parrot in appropriate ways. You know how when parrots grow like new feathers? Like most birds, like all birds. Why do I say it like that? Like all birds, they have like little pin feathers. And then like on their heads and necks, they need help to like break open their pin feathers. Yeah, that's like a really important way to bond with your parrot and can make them feel like they're a part of your flock and they really trust you. And so it's important to groom your parrot's head and neck with your little fingers and just open up your little feathers and then they'll be so happy. And the other important component of that is that you, by only petting their head and neck, are avoiding all of their erogenous zones,
which is basically the rest of their body.
Yeah. And so that's the safe way to interact with your parrots without getting into their erogenous zones and making them confused and excited.
Lovely.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
Thanks.
Enjoy bonding with your parrots.
In an appropriate way.
Yes.
Yeah. Stay safe out there, guys. Bye.
Bye.